Now we have thanked everyone. You can leave now. Okay. Everybody's thanked. It's good. Looks like I'm now the only one standing between you and your lunch and your lovely family. So I will try to do something, to make sure you can leave as early as possible. Okay. You should really thank yourself. I really should, because you are the best audience I've ever had. Really, thank you. Really, it's very good. Thank you. It's amazing. Really, you are very amazing. Some of you are trying to understand in a second language, and I pretend to speak my second language, and you understand it. That's amazing. It's very interesting, and I know this has not been very easy. What's the most frustrating in this hotel so far is the internet, right? It's so slow. That's why we call it. It reminds me of like 10 years ago. Remember 10 years ago? We called the World Wide Web. It's called World Wide Wheat. The 3 W's, right? Is www. That's why we started everything. But trust me, next year I'm sure this will be better. I hope, but I don't. You don't trust me. I don't know. I have no idea. Now, yesterday we talked about a different paradigm. Today I want to talk about how do we implement the paradigm. And if the internet works, I want to bring a video that summarizes the last paradigm, the past paradigm. If education is about meeting other people's expectations, passing someone's examination, or memorization of knowledge, we could reduce 12 years into maybe 1 month. Really, don't you think? If you now try to recall what you still remembered 10 years after you finished high school, what do you remember? You can reduce that in much less. I was actually thinking, we spend so much time memorizing history. Now I think going back, it's only 2 books. You can finish in 3 days, but we spent so long learning that thing. If everything works, this video should show you that. If it doesn't work, you can go find it. It's called Father Satucci. He's from Brazil, a Brazilian priest, a comedian actually. He came up with this idea in 1970s called a 5-minute university. Okay, so you can hear this. It works. So if it doesn't work, don't blame me. Blame the hotel. Okay. Can we have some sound, please?
All the same. I find the education, I think it don't matter where you go to school. Italy, America, Brazil, it's all the same. It's all just memorization. And it don't matter how long you can remember anything, just so you can parrot it back for the test. And I got this idea for a school I would like to start. Something called the 5-minute university. And the idea is that in 5 minutes, you learn what the average college graduate remembers 5 years after he or she's out of school. With the cost of like $20. That might seem like a lot of money, $20 just for 5 minutes. But that's for like a tuition, cap and gown rental, graduation picture, snacks, everything included. Like in college, you have to take a foreign language. Well, at the 5-minute university, you can have your choice. Any language you want, you can take it. Say if you want to take Spanish, what I teach you is, ¿Cómo está usted? That means, how are you? And the answer is, muy bien, means very well. And believe me, if you took 2 years of college Spanish, 5 years after you're out of school, ¿Cómo está usted? Muy bien, about all you're going to remember.
Don't blame me. Okay. So we'll wait. Shall we wait? No. Now you go search on YouTube. It's called 5-Minute University by Father Satucci. It's really, really funny, but makes a really strong point. He says that, and he teaches about, for example, he said that he's a priest. He's going to offer a theology class. He said, in theology, what do we learn? We learn about, I answered the big question, where is God? That's what we learn, right? And he said, well, God is everywhere. And he said, why? Because he likes you. That's the answer. So that's the only thing about theology, and talks about economics. Economics, only something like this. You buy something and sell it for more. That's it. You don't have to learn anything else. Then you get this graduate. If you can paraphrase back the answer, you get the diploma, right? It only takes 5 minutes. Now think about education. Yesterday we talked a lot about this. We do that a lot of times. Really, we think about those things all the time. It really does not make sense. So how do you make your education more than that? By the way, before I forget, some of you were asking me, where'd you get those funny pictures, the stereotypes? If you go on the internet, search for stereotype maps. You'll find a lot of them. Stereotype maps. This is a German guy made it. It's just a very funny thing. And you should actually go home to exercise. If you want to teach global competence, have your students fill the map with their stereotypes about other people. It'll be really interesting to confront those kind of ideas. It's fascinating. Now, today, I want to get onto the idea about how to make things happen. Before that, I would really like to say everything I see here is based on both my personal experience and my actual research in different domains of things. So we talk about creativity, we talk about entrepreneurship, but I won't tell you really, people do not like creative people. You know that, right? People do not like creative people makes trouble. I was thinking about, this is so funny. So this is, have you guys seen this? That's traffic lights in my hometown in Chongqing, China. Can you get used to that? That's the product of creativity, right? Now, Stephen from England, I want to show you, there's another, that's very creative. You know what that is? That's the worst, what I call traffic circle. England, they call roundabouts. I drove through this. This is near Petersburg. I drove there. It took me 5 days to get out of it. You remember you have those small roundabouts around bigger roundabouts. You know that? It's shocking. So a lot of times, creative people create problems for other people to solve. Okay, so now what do we need to do? We need to change. We need to be entrepreneur in rethinking about that. That's what, And honestly, I'm a person who is really against change, if it's not mine, okay. I like to change other people. I don't, so I found a lot of you go to conference, people say, you got to change. You have to change. If you don't change, I blame you. I said, why don't you change? Do you notice that? I found there's a lot of arrogance in our life. We're very arrogant. We want you to change in certain directions without empowering people to change in their own way. That's that. Teachers, parents, governments, they're very authoritarian people. We always like to think you should do what I tell you to do. For me, I think I was talking to Andy Hargreaves one time, we're chatting. I said, I don't want any regulation except the regulation that there's no regulation. It's people, you should invite people. So my own education experience, I mentioned yesterday, I came out of a really poor village. None of my people, parents or my siblings, they're still, farming over there. They were not literate. I had no access to books, all those kind of things. I had one teacher who taught me for year 1, year 2, another teacher year 3, 4, 5, those one teacher who taught multiple grades and those kind of things. But one thing I discovered that made me do, this is something for teachers, I want you to think about this, is the only reason I did that was that, I was bad at farming, but I was feeling comfortable in the school. School provided an alternative space for me to feel better. Because I was so bad, I was so bad at GCSE, that's farming, and then I went to school, I did something else. I said, man, I like this thing. Another thing I found, schooling was very, very useful for me. And that's how I developed collaborative skills. And when I went to school, I was very small, and I couldn't fight very well. I got bullied all the time by other big kids. I wasn't no good. And then what happened there, once I went to school, those kids, they're good at farming, but they hated school. So I began to outsource my personal protection to them. I hired them to fight for me. I did their homework. Now, that's called collaboration. That's true collaboration. You outsource your weakness. You capitalize on your strength. If you cannot do something, hire somebody else to do it for you. So 2 lessons for teach. One, teachers should provide a space to make every child feel good and feel comfortable. And only in that condition can they actually want to learn. Otherwise, nobody wants to stay in that place that makes you feel miserable. Remember, that's how kids just get disengaged. So I think learning is very important, but interest, passion, and confidence is more important. So we should start there before we drill them skills. Second of is we should always make every child feel like they're useful to other people. They're useful to other people. So that's the kind of things we want to start talking about today. And now, I want to start yesterday. We chatted a little bit about the new models of education. So if you think about what makes a good school, I talk about student autonomy, I talk about personalized product-oriented learning, I talk about globalized campus. And I'll go through this a little bit, and I'll be very happy to share with you this PDF file. It's like indicators of a great school. I'll email Savannah if you want it. You can just download it anywhere. I cannot put it on one website because my publisher does not like that. I love to share with everything. I really don't. I don't own any of this. I make them, and just I think it's about to be shared. So let me show you something here. I want to start by talking about the first thing we think about what education can be, the new model of education. The new model of education is a transformation from one end to another end. It is to the old paradigm of instilling in students a prescribed set of content to supporting their own learning. And now this is what I think the shift we should think about. Instead of fixing the past, we should invent the future. Today, really, we spend so much time fixing the past. We want, again, better curriculum, better pedagogy, better assessment. Everybody thinks schooling is the same as education. Schooling is not the same as education. I may not have been to any school, but I could get a very good education. Sometimes schooling can do damage. Do you guys know teachers? I think teachers should have the same kind of thing like doctors. You should say, if you cannot help a student, do not hurt him. If you cannot do good, don't do harm. I think it's something we hurt people. So what I would like to think about, we should move in from past like curriculum. Curriculum used to be called defining what students should know. We moved in today, it's called follow the children. We call emergent curriculum. There are models like this for, like the Reggio model. You may have heard about Reggio from Italy. You may have heard about that. We should teachers from instilling what students should do to inspire and curate learning opportunities. Teachers, you are like a curator in a museum. You're curators of learning opportunities. Students can follow your path to their success. Assessment, instead of measuring what students used to know, we began to think about improving personalized learning. And technology, instead of trying to support transmission, we should call about creating and connecting opportunities. By the way, technology used to be my strong field. I used to do a lot of research. And technology, the most popular use in our schools technology is still support transmission and measuring student data. Do you notice that? And even those, we got today, you guys have a lot of smart boards around. Do you have smart boards? Yeah. I can't find the smartness in the smart boards. They're actually quite dumb boards. I don't see a lot of smartness in the boards yet. But that's about transmission, about trying to teach something better. All those things. We need to make this big shift. So I'm going to start by talking about the curriculum. And what is a personalized curriculum look like? Personalized curriculum. There's a school called Summerhill School. I think, Stephen, you know this school in England. It's the most controversial school in the history of education. A tiny little place, right? A tiny little place, starting like 1920s. It's like by a person, I think Neil Sutherland, what's his name? He was basically saying that we need a school that doesn't teach anything. That's what basically, he didn't say that. He said basically we want a school where children can be children. That's it. So in this school, it's truly children can do. I can walk away from there. Can you still hear me? Good. So in that, I better stand back here. Okay. I can't hear myself because that's hard. So in a school where Every child is allowed really to do whatever they like, as long as they do not interfere with other people's freedom. It's like a democracy, right? A child can come to school. If you like to stay in a tree, you can stay in a tree for 12 years, and nobody will bother you. Okay. But do you know how hard it is to stay in a tree without doing anything? So there is the interesting irony in human beings. Human beings are born curious. You cannot stop learning. That's something. We get kids not to learn. We teach kids not to learn. Do you notice that in our school? How do you punish your children? In America, we have something called timeout. You know what's timeout? Timeout means you cannot do anything. That's the heaviest punishment for children. When they face something, they can't do anything. Did you guys notice, like now when you're sitting in the bus, you have to do something. You have to read something. If I make you do nothing, you will hate me forever. So children want to learn. They cannot live in boredom. That's why we call it, you put them time out, they put in jail. They cannot do anything. So trust the person. Children want to learn. But if you do not want someone to learn anything, what do? You force them to do it. And some people complain, oh, my kids are so addicted to video games. What do I do with them? I said, well, make it a requirement. They have to play video games 10 hours a day and earn this many points on a day. If you can't finish that, then you will have no food for you. Your kids will get off video game very quick. So this first thing, this is called autonomy. Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive. The best motivation for learning is called autonomy. You allow students to pursue their interest and they will expand. So there are many schools who've been doing this. Old school has been doing. Summerhill as a school was an interesting story. It's a BBC movie based on Summerhill's struggle. A few years ago, when the Blair government, I think Michael talked about, when the Blair government came down to do a lot more national curriculum, national standards, Ofsted began to inspect schools to see if schools have met expectations, have implemented the curriculum, again, in the name of protecting children. So Her Majesty inspector came to Summerhill. And of course, Her Majesty inspectors were surprised. The school did not have a curriculum. Children do whatever they like. Teachers still teach the class, but you don't know who will come to your class. So teachers were still teaching all this stuff. And in that class, I mean, like maybe a chemistry class, some children may be making a movie about Japanese war, some may be making a novel, some may be taking a nap. So the government said, oh, it's a horrible school, we're going to close you down. You're not watching our children carefully, you're so bad, we're going to close you down. I think it was the Minister of Education that ordered the closing down of the Summerhill next year, right away. School practices another thing, it's called democracy. All rules were made by children and adults. Everyone gets one vote. Where to park the bike, when do we have lunch, and how do we punish people? They have weekly meetings to decide all the rules. So democracy, everybody gets one vote. And so the school had a lot of actually well-known alumni. They have engineers, hedge fund managers, artists. They produce many, many different kind of people. All this 100 years somehow. So they took the government to court. The London High Court asked the government, why do you want to close down? Well, they said the school, the school is not producing citizens who can defend a democracy. So the judges asked, so what does the school do? They said, they allow kids to do whatever they like. And the children making the rules, the judge said, isn't that democracy? So the government backed off, said, we're not going to do it anymore. So they let the school run, and 4 years later, the government went back to check on the school again. And this time, the school get an excellent. This is the best school you can ever have. You're getting a great education from a school. So they interviewed the principal and asked what changed. People think it's a turnaround school. We made a bad school great. The principal, we've never done anything. We've never changed anything. The government has changed. So how do you think about this? Education should start from children's interest. They want to learn. They're interested in learning. And then I saw this new model happening 3 weeks ago in Australia. And I went to this school called Templestowe College. in Australia, in Melbourne, and where I learned to handle snakes. Okay, it's quite scary stuff. I was born in the year of the snake. That's why I don't like snakes. You don't like yourself normally. No. So I went to the school. I said, the school has been, the principal, Peter Hutton, said, could you come? So I've admired your work for so long. Can you come to visit our school? Give us a review. See if we're doing the right things. And the school was supposed to be closed down 5 years ago by the government. 5 years ago. It's a college, called secondary college from year 7, grade 7 to 12. And when he went to the school, they only have 200 students. And grade 7 has only 23 students. You know it's closed down, it's declining. It's really bad. But it's in a very nice area of Melbourne, Eastern Melbourne region. So he went in there, he made some dramatic changes. Anyway, so he wants me to go visit. So we got a bunch of people go visit, I spent a whole day there. And then I went to school, I said, you know, one thing, I saw a lot of animals. I said, when I go to Australia, I get very nervous because of the spiders, snakes. Australia is the most poisonous place, you know, yeah. Do you guys know that? All the animals, you know, it's a very dangerous place. But it's a beautiful place. By the way, Stephen, I never understand why the Queens, the royal family made Australia a prison. It's actually a much better place than England. They should have swapped the place, right? We should leave the criminals back home. That's right. But anyway, so I was there. So I said, I want to know how to handle snakes. Because I'm determined, because I'm so afraid. It's not good for me. I want to confront my fear. So I said, I want to learn how to handle snakes. So he said, yeah, let's come. We'll visit school. So I went to this big room, and a lot of students there, they're doing fish, snakes, lizards, all kind of things. I said, what is it? So they said, they brought this guy, and then they brought me a student. The student who taught me how to do this. Look at this smiley child. That's Josh. Okay, Josh. Josh was, I think, in year 9, a student. I didn't know what he was doing until later on. So he brought a big python and taught me how to handle it. And he was very confident. He spoke, taught me how to do it. Had no problem taking photos and explaining, and a little stuttering problem, a little bit, you know. And then after I said, oh yeah, I'm so happy I can handle it. And they wrapped stuff around my neck. I did all those things. It's very fun. And then Josh took me around to explain all different kind of animals. So after all this, so the principal later on told me, said, do you know about Josh's story? I said, no, I don't. Then the principal, Peter Hutton, is in his 50s. He had tears in his eyes. I said, what's going on? Okay. Then he said, Josh, 2 years ago, when he came to school, he refused to come to school. He refused to go to any school. He transferred from another school. His parents were like drug addicts. They had a lot of damage. Josh had a very low confidence, stuttering. He would just stay in bed, wouldn't go to any place, and moved to a foster family, transferred to this school. And then at that time, the principal had one thing. He's been doing this school for 5 years, ever since he took over. He asked children, what do they want to learn? That's the only thing he asked. What do you want to learn? He said the number one choice all kids have is handling animals. So they have goats, they have sheep, they build this place. And Josh said, I only want to play with animals. So Josh became the head of this class. They built fish tanks, and Josh becomes so confident. And Josh now runs this class with another teacher. This class now has become a pre-biology class. So I went around. This story, then I met with Daisy. Daisy was a painter. She paints very well. She successfully sold her painting to the principal for $200. And then she actually had a big art festival. And then the school bring a lot of art class for Daisy. And then they try to get Daisy to do some basic work in math. And the principal, after a while, told her mother, said, you know, it looks like you're going to have to hire an accountant for you. You won't be able to learn math. And this basketball player. So what the school does, they have something very minimum. Everybody does something, the basic minimum thing. And actually I told him, I said, make the minimum as low as possible. Then you allow children to choose, then they branch out. Josh has branched out in other things. So the school, you know, Victoria, they have this thing called VCE. That's many subjects. Normally it's offered at year 10. Now any grades can take them. And he's getting rid of grades. No grades. Children is moving to different ways. So that's called personalization. You choose your own pathway. And once they get confidence, they can expand to do something else. Templestowe College and Summerhill. You can read a lot about this. I've seen this in many, many different places. It's protect and make a person a healthy, socially, emotionally healthy person is much more important than damaging them with some basic knowledge. It's not worth it. So you can do it. So how do we do this then? How do we make a school to pursue student autonomy? So here's some suggestions. So I have 3 things to think about. Number 1, you can talk about, do we allow students to have a voice in the governance and environment of your schooling? I think I was talking to Miss Sworn about the college over there. They're allowing students to do a lot of things. So Summerhill, Templestowe, they ask students to say, what would you like to do? So imagine your school. When they talk about curator of a learning opportunity, every school, every class, you can do a lot. There's about 3 types of environments you do in your school or in your classroom. This can apply your classroom and school. There are 3 types of environments or infrastructure. Number 1, I call it the social environment. Every school has to define relationships, right? You have to define. You know, you go to some schools that are very hierarchical. You got one big boss runs the school, and you go to some other school, it's very flat structured. So you won't ask yourself, do you engage your children in making the rules? As you know, if children making the rules, they're less likely to break it. If you want to make the rules imposed on people, they'll be very creative in breaking your rules. That's what happens. Do you want to invite them to take ownership of doing something? I was in a school recently in Alabama in the U.S., a high school. You know, they have the high school graduation in America, and every high school graduation ceremony, it's time for children to play pranks on people, and they try to destroy it, and that's really funny. They try to destroy it. So the principal said, "I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to have them run their graduation ceremony, so they are not going to play pranks on me." So that's something. Ownership changes the whole thing. How do you define the relationship? Be as flat as possible, as flat as possible. And also, the second kind of environment is, we call this the cognitive or intellectual environment. You know, what kind of things do you teach? What kind of people are there to teach others? What kind of courses do you have to offer, the opportunities to stimulate children? That's the one. So, for example, do you allow children to select, to at least participate in hiring your teaching staff or doing evaluation of this? And actually, High Tech High in San Diego does this. High Tech High, when they hire new employee staff, students form the first selection committee. They go evaluate. By the way, if you want to try this, go home, ask your students, what makes a good teacher. It's really interesting. Ask them to select what makes a good teacher. I did this to my own children. My son is now graduating now. My son is much older than my daughter. My son has graduated from college. When he was very unhappy of me being a father. He said, "You were not a good father. Like teenager stuff like that." So I bought him a book called "How to Be a Good Father." So I gave the book to him, and I said, "You read it and tell me what I should do." So that's something really interesting, because ask them to rethink about in a different role. They contribute to this environment. And then you have this physical infrastructure too. Remember, social, that regulates how we interact with each other, and cognitive or intellectual, that means who you have and what you offer. And then you talk about the physical. You know, school right now, most schools are like prisons. Do you notice that? Most schools, you go to like prison. You know, some people said, what did the children do to be subject to such, imprisonment for 12 years? If you have any people from the Mars, if they were Martians, they come to school, we think we love our children. You know what we put them in? We put them in square boxes. This is like a real prison. They can only get out for 10 minutes before education. That's imprisonment, and they have to do what you tell them to do. Don't you think that's a horrible thing? We do the horrible thing to our children, and we think we're doing good to them. Really, I have to tell you this one. I did not have much schooling. I only had 5 years in elementary school, 2 years in middle school, 2 years, and I spend as little time as possible in school, really. It's, people say, how do you learn English? I said, well, by not going to class. That's how I learn it. I read by myself. I just went to different places. The reason is that I'm sure you sit here. Do you know how hard it is to follow some instructions? And when people are teaching you how to do something, do you guys know it's very hard? People need different physical space to do different things. Sometimes people want to just on their own. That's why yesterday I was being critical of collaborative skills. Sometimes they have no interest to collaborate with anybody. Sometimes I just hate people. I just want to go by myself. Do you have that space? You should have space for people to, if they work on some great art piece, they should be there for work for an hour, 12 hours. You should let them know. But in our schools now, you are about to write a great piece of novel. Say, well, we got the classes out. We don't have time. Let's write tomorrow. Remember those things? You don't work in those things. Redefining the space and time is very much important. Flexibility. You need large classes. I've been to a school, and actually very interesting. There's a school called the Australian Math and Science School in Adelaide, South Australia. This school is like a gigantic hallway, but with many little tiny places. So sometimes, like they teach, the students basically work on the project. They teach very little. They don't really even have different subjects. They just have, I think, math and science. But children work on projects. Then what they do? They're in the small rooms, like work studios. They have the Da Vinci studio. They have an Einstein studio. They have different studios. So then children, they have locations. If they have questions about specific problems, they go post somewhere. They can post-it notes or type it in. Teachers, as a group, you have math teachers, scientists, they're specialists. They walk around those places. They find some questions. Then if they have some common questions, they will say, next 5 minutes over there in that corner, I am going to explain gravity. Whoever wants to know, you come here, explain. Then you go away. You go to some other places. That's very flexible use of space and staffing. So they don't think about one space for everything. You need different kind of work. But you involve students in doing this, not just by you predetermined. The same thing, when we buy technology. Do you guys know technology? When we think that smartboard is smart, we buy them. We want students to have iPads. We want to have all this. We want a uniform. No, ask them what they want. They may have 5 iPads at home already. Why would you buy them another iPad? Just buy them a video game, something like that. So, voice, student voice in their ability to construct the learning environment is very important. Beside voice, choice. So I think about voice and choice. Do you have a flexible curriculum and broad? Why do we have a broad curriculum? Breadth in a school, a good school, if I go look for a school, I'll first look at how many different kind of courses you offer. Because breadth allows you to understand what you're good at and what you're bad at. Children don't know what exactly they're good at, or that they don't even know what they might be interested in if they don't see it. You make sure you can expose them to as many different experiences as possible. This is, by the way, why we call some kids do better, because they've seen more. They've had more experiences, given them more alternatives. And then you don't know what you're passionate until you try something. Give them a lot of tries. Give them a lot of opportunities. You may want to rotate your students through different experiences. You may say, okay, let's experience, only 2 weeks of experience of biology. Make your teachers compete, right? 2 weeks of biology, 2 weeks of music. You offer them as many. Then they experience, this is fun. I'm going to try this. You can run your first, if you're in high school, you run your first month as a camp, as a festival, a learning fair. You have teachers talking about everything in different places. Students go there, experience. All those things like carnival. It would be fun, right? I don't know if you can do it, but it's kind of fun. Don't let your government know, but it's a. So that how many? And also think about this: that can students construct their own programs and courses? And in the several schools, there was another school in Adelaide. I was told children are paid to teach each other what they know. Children. If you don't have enough teachers, kids, Australia, a lot of immigrant children. Someone said, hey, I want to teach Indonesian language. I can offer to my friends. Someone was teaching Persian, someone teaching Arabic. It was really fun. If you're good at teaching video game, do it. So you could have one day, one Friday. Fridays is all student course day. Students can offer them. Or do you allow students to say, some students come to your school to say, hey, I'm really interested in advanced engineering. And the school doesn't have it. But the student may have an uncle, a friend, or YouTube, or maybe some of the MOOC courses. Have you heard about the MOOCs? You know, MOOC. If they can choose to learn from somewhere, you should allow that. Can they bring their own thing over? And can they have their own judgment? By the way, I saw this one. It's that this is, I'm doing a commercial for Cambridge. I'm not paid yet. Okay. It's called 10 Reasons to Choose Cambridge International Examinations. I'm going to change. There's only one reason you would choose, is that they have lots of courses. If they allow students to choose, to learn on their own, I would endorse that, because you can learn whatever you like from it, right? So you don't have to offer everything. You students teach each other. Do you guys know how powerful it is if you are students teaching somebody else? I have always learned that in my life. If you want to learn something, teach it. So you go home. If you don't know something, teach it. Pretend you know, you will learn a lot. You know, I've done this all the time. I'm trying to teach Spanish nowadays. You know, I was trying to teach the taxi driver how to speak Spanish, and it's worked out fine. You know, he just took me to the wrong hotel, but that's okay. Now, also you want to think about, do you support students to develop their own courses? You know, for example, students said, hey, I want to do cartoon. How to do digital cartoon animation? He said, well, nobody teaches you. So you can tell the kids, why don't I give you $500? You learn and you come back to teach other people. Do you have those kind of things? It's very simple stuff. We can change a lot, all this. And then, but, voice, choice, children are still children. Yesterday, I think I asked this question. If you can Google everything, why do we need a teacher? Right? If a student can Google everything, why do we need teachers? Teachers are always needed, but teachers are needed for a different reason. Teachers do not try to compete with Google for how much you know. You won't know more than Google. I'm sorry, you won't do that. Okay, you won't be able to do that. What you need to do, this is where teachers play the most important role: mentoring and advising. You become the reason that student would Google. You inspire them to Google. You inspire them to do something. So here's the reason. That's what I call, we need any personalization needs good support. So in all the schools I've seen, there's a very strong student-teacher relationship. Everyone has a mentor, like a doctor advisor. You are assigned to one small group. So you take 5 students, 10 students, and then they all offer to have a vertical social organization. You know, now in most schools, we do horizontal. If you're age 10, you're in 3rd grade. Remember those things? But now they do vertical. They got rid of grades, so they have like houses. You watch Harry Potter. Oh, well, you're in a British system. That's a British system, right? You have this vertical social system. You are the Gryffindors, the Slytherins, all those things, That's what makes a lot of sense. And actually, you avoid bullying. When you do horizontal grouping by grades, by age group, you're inviting bullying. Your year 10 student, year 11, what's the point of being a senior if you cannot bully the junior? That's the point, right? That's the idea. That's what's by design. You're supposed to make fun of them, right? You've earned the right. Vertical. Advise. Schools will become most valuable when you become a place for children to exercise, practice their social capital, social skills, and develop emotional strength. We talk about resilience. We talk about failure, all those kind of. How do you experience failure without trying to fail? But now in our current schools, you cannot fail. Remember this one in the model? Because by age 5, you're supposed to know this much. Age 10 is know this much. If you failed, you're a bad student. You don't want to be a bad student. You want to design a system, allow them to fail. But then you need good support to help them how to fail. How to fail is very important, perhaps more important than how to succeed. Most people do not know how to fail. And that's where teachers are supposed to do. I get my kids to fail all the time. I make their life miserable. It's in a nice way. I knew they would fail. My daughter recently was trying to be the state champion for playing the violin. She's very good. She started when she was 3, but she doesn't practice. And my wife, we just ignored that. We knew she would fail. Go fail, miserable. She come home, didn't get it, was unhappy. I said, what do you think? If you don't practice, you can't get it. If you actually got it, I would be surprised. That would be horrible. So we'd use those things to talk about efforts, growth mindset, all those kind of things. So personalization needs a lot of mentoring and supporting and human relationship. This also may challenge you to think about your school. You know, we debate about class size all the time. How big the class, a class cannot be more than 20, 25 people. Most research has not found interesting results. You know, in China has a lot of good test scores. They run a class of 60 students, 100 students. They still have good scores because it's knowledge transmission. If it's personalization, you have to have smaller groups. So it's very, very different. It's how do you personalize this? Human connection, this is where it matters. Now, the next thing that's important we're talking about is product-oriented learning. And so what is product-oriented learning? You've heard about project-based learning. Have you heard about that? Or problem-based learning called PBL. You've heard about that. I don't like it because I've seen a PBL being abused in many places. Children do a lot of projects, but they're meaningless. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. My children grow a lot of pumpkin when they're in early grades. I don't need pumpkin. They don't care about pumpkins, What I'm interested in doing is that we want to engage our children to produce authentic products. So they are innovators, they are creators, they are entrepreneurs from day one in your school. They're making things that matter to them. Why is that important? Remember yesterday we said we want children to become great and unique. If you're not great, if you're not unique, you have no value. Just mediocrity doesn't cut it. You have to do it. But how do you become great? What's the difference between great and mediocrity? And I don't know if you've seen this. I was going to find this on YouTube, but since it's too slow, I had to do something different. I'm going to show you the example called Austin's butterfly. Ron Berger did this. I didn't do it. So from Harvard, Ron Berger. You can find on YouTube. Search on Austin's butterfly. Don't search now. Listen to me. Okay. Now, Austin's butterfly. Austin is a 7-year-old child, grade 1, first grader. He was asked to draw a butterfly based on a real butterfly called a good scientific portrait of a butterfly. Austin, a boy, came up with this butterfly. Now this is pretty good butterfly. Your children. Woo! Okay, thank you. So our children brought home a lot of their artwork. Remember them? And you put them on your refrigerator, in shoe boxes, but they're really bad, right? They are what I call they're crap. So they're not good. What do? We put them up because we love them. It's because not because their work is good. Because schools encourage mediocrity. Most our first graders will not produce this. They do not end up with this. How did this happen? This is called greatness. Austin's first draft, Austin's like every other child, that's Austin's first draft. I bet most of you have a butterfly like that. So this is the key. How do you go from there to here? It's really number one, lots of time. I'm going to talk about this one. There are 3 things contribute to greatness: time, passion, and feedback. A good mentor. Okay. We talk about 10,000 hours of 10,000 hours. But unless you're passionate about something, that 10,000 hours is no use. Because who wants to spend 10,000 hours in something you don't like? And if I can force you to do it, you are going to try to get out of it as much as possible. But also feedback. Without good feedback, 10,000 hours would just be repetition of 1 hour. So I would call 10,000 hours is different from 1 hour repeated 10,000 times. If you want to improve, you have to have variation. Your next trial has to be different from the first try. That's good feedback. If you play violin, if nobody suggests, you'll be making the same mistakes. That's why China, for so long time, has not progressed as a society. Today's China is still feudal thinking, Confucian thinking. You heard about China has 2,000 years of history. That's 200 years repeated 10 times. There's no progress. It's the same thing. That one emperor replaces another emperor. There's no new ideas come in. Austin has 3. Spends a lot of time, has a passion, wants to do better. Remember that yesterday Google wants to hire people, takes ownership. He wants to do better. He had feedback. His friends, other first graders, talked to Austin and said, Austin, you think the butterfly looks that small? You look at the wings, they're different. Austin said, oh yeah, let me go back, try it again. And Austin has a second draft. Austin has a second draft. Now Austin took this back to friends. Again, first grade, the teacher was never involved. Other kids said, Austin, really, you look at the wings, you compare that, and they're very specific feedback. Kids actually give very specific feedback. They don't say this is bad. They just say, Austin, look at that. So how to train your people to give feedback is very important. Just don't say it's bad. You say, look at that. Does this look like this? So Austin said, oh, I made it too sharp and too big, the wings. So Austin tried again. Third draft. Fourth and fifth draft. Now ask yourself, do you give your students enough time for them to improve their essays? We never give them time, right? So that's why their essays are never perfect, never great. And this is you learn about growth mindset. You learn that effort matters. You learn that you can be better. You learn that other people's suggestions are not trying to make you feel bad, instead trying to make you feel good because you can improve. You learn that being proud of being able to improve is much more important than being perfect the first time. No one is born perfect. This is what we need. This is why we need authentic products. High Tech High, if you want to look for great places to have as an example, you can go to High Tech High in San Diego. Children engaged in making authentic products all the time. Authentic products all the time. You make real stuff. So you come back, I have suggestions for how do you make product-oriented learning. Ask yourself, number 1, are your projects really meaningful to children? Or is it their projects, or is it your project? In our schools, a lot of times, we give students something to do. We think you should do this. Let's grow more pumpkin. I hate pumpkin. Let's not grow some pumpkin. Students should nominate. You should have ideas. Give them authentic problems. What's an authentic problem? It matters to somebody. Ask your students, are they doing something that matters to somebody? For example, you want to teach English. I've always suggested people, if your students are learning English, why don't they have them making English audio books or bilingual books for children who are in other places who want to learn English? Or you want to teach Spanish, the same way. They're much more responsible. So I have this project called the Global Language and Culture Institute. I want children to teach each other their own language or what they're learning about. That's much more meaningful. And they will learn about grammar, they will learn about writing, but don't do one. They can do a lot more. They can do a lot more. Children need to take responsibility about their life. Our children, really, for 12 years in schools, have no authentic responsibility. It's very sad. The only thing they do, I feel really sad for ourselves right now. Human beings, we waste our children's talent to learn something that may or may not matter at all in the future. How do you get them involved in that? Yesterday I also said that you have some of the luckiest ovarian accidents. Your children are generally more wealthier than other people. They're perhaps intelligent family background. We have so many poor people in this world. Why can't we help them help others? There's a project in North Africa. People are trying to say they want to use peer teaching to help those poor children. Why can't your children be creating learning lessons in math, in physics, in science for other kids? Create something. Do not just keep donating shoes to those people. They don't need shoes. They need more different kind of learning. Open their mind. Authentic products. Authentic should be global. Should be global too. So, Buenos Aires, you have so many problems. Maybe have your kids train as taxi drivers so they can speak some English, Next time I don't get lost. That'd be one of the ideas. So that's some of the, find something authentic. So this is the idea, but I'm not going to have time to explain all of this. Do you have infrastructure? For example, some schools now have an office of entrepreneurship. They collect children's ideas. Children come to say, hey, I want to make something. Say, hey, we can do that. At a Punahou school in Hawaii, they have the office of, social entrepreneurship. So public service. Children come here and say, I would like to do this. How can we help you engage in this? The school does this kind of work. And the schools have chapel, and they invite children to create chapel programs. This is very interesting. Different kind of ideas. Infrastructure, support. And then I want to come to say, is the process sustained and disciplined? That's what Austin's was. Remember, you want children to be disciplined. Creativity is not generic. Creativity, to be valuable, has to be disciplined in certain domains. You cannot be generically creative in everything. You have to learn. That's where knowledge comes in. You can be creative in math, in physics, in music, everything, but that takes discipline. That's what I want to go through the process. Do you have a review process? Do you go through the general ideas? And then, of course, one called strength-based. This is very important. Ask your children to identify what they're good at. Look hard in your school. Do you know your teacher's strength? Every teacher is a human being. They're not a machine. Today, in our schools, we're treating every teacher as a generic machine, like a Google search engine. No, every teacher is a human being. You are a human. You have your interest. You have your passion. I'm sure you have done a lot of things you don't do in school. You should. You should be a person, be a human person, and identify strength. Every community has strength. In a globalized world, the more local you are, the more unique you are. But you have to be global. For example, speaking Spanish here may not be of value. It's hard to charge somebody, hey, I'll speak Spanish with you for $5. You can't. But if you go to China, they will do it because they want to learn Spanish. It's very valuable. Identify that piece. So this is allowing people to make mistakes, forgive mistakes, encourage reforms. You know that a good education system is a forgiving system. You're very open and forgiving. Allow second chances. In our schools, we punish mistakes too much. So I'm sure many of you did things in your youth that you haven't told your parents yet. Right? You must have, right? You kind of allow this. If you don't make, you cannot improve. And then, finally, the new model includes, the third level is called a globalized campus. You treat other people as partners, as customers, as investors, as who you work with. I'm just giving you one example. There is a school called Cherwell Secondary College. Again, it's an English school in Oxfordshire and near Oxford. Stephen, I don't know if you've been there. Cherwell Secondary College. Students, they've been building a project called the Chicken Project. And I am an investor in the Chicken Project, okay? There were 4 students started this one. They saw this project in South Africa where I took those pictures. Remember those yesterday? The direction pictures? That was several years ago. So the students said that they went to Eastern Cape in South Africa, the poorest region in South Africa. And they were there trying to teach English. They discovered that English is no use for them, no help. But their students have been taking economics class back home. So they discovered their children need food, need nutrition. So what they said, what if we teach these people how to raise chickens and how to run the enterprise of chickens? So they convinced people to donate land. They went back, raised money to build chicken coops. They taught the children how to do a modernized way of feed chickens, to grow chickens. The kids can have eggs, sow them, and they've been very successful. So they raised money. They received a lot of awards for being the best one. So they expanded the chicken project to other countries in Africa to teach family chicken farms so people do not have to poach wild animals. When these children did what they do, it's authentic, it's global. They went back home. They raised money from other places to buy chickens. In the beginning, actually, they made a lot of mistakes. They didn't know the difference between chickens who lay eggs, chickens don't. They're learning a lot of things. Now, this project has been going on from generation to generation. The first group of kids graduated. They have second generation now. Now, that's an authentic global project that maximized interest to other people. So we're thinking about globalization. So let me ask you about this. Are we doing all this? Are you creating a lot of international partners and build new opportunities? Today, your students, as I said yesterday, can really learn from anywhere. Are you allowing that? You know, do your children participate? There's a project in, again, Punahou School. That's where the Obama School, Obama Graduate School in Hawaii. It's a big private school, 170-some-year-olds. They have a project called Global Student Leadership Institute. They run every year. Students from many countries, you should participate in that one. Come together for a month. They pick a big theme. For example, water. But water is a problem in different places. Some places, the water, they have too much water. Remember, some places have too little water. So they have localized the problem, how to solve that problem. Then they work together over 1 year online. After they go home, they produce real projects. And then they have another project that they bind together. Maybe ESRP, that's the organization, can do this. So this Hawaii school joins another 40 schools. They have the Global Online Learning Academy. Schools pool their courses together. So you cannot offer everything. Then another school can offer, you know, in your school you may be offering Latin, but you only have 3 students taking Latin. But you can have students from other school take Latin. You can offer shared courses. You can allow students to share all those courses. So it's all this possible. Global competence, including foreign languages. I don't need to say more. Your school are doing the right thing. Bilingualism should be a default in the future. You know, but be careful. Bilingualism does not mean bicultural. Sometimes you only learn a foreign language to insult other people, right? Cultural competence, cross-cultural intelligence is very important. So all of this come to a project I've been doing, which I am very proud of. I hope you can join. And so I've been building this global online learning platform. Give it a try. Teachers can try it. Schools can try it. It's called OBA. It's nothing to do with Obama. It's simply OBA. Okay, OBA. I choose this word because you can pronounce this word in any language. Oba, right? Any language. You cannot destroy it. Doesn't mean, we haven't found it means anything bad yet in any language. There's many languages. So we have 2 versions, obaworld.net and obaverse. Obaworld is a closed environment for young children. You want to protect young children. Obaverse is free. You can try it out now. You can register. You can play with it. So what this is a global online learning platform. It allows anyone to construct courses to share with others. Because it's in the cloud. It's not owned by any one school. So you can own by a school, you can get on, you can have St. Andrews, like Gabriel. Your students can do your project, you can offer your courses. As a teacher, you can get on and say, I can close my course to myself. You are teaching chemistry, your students can submit their homework to you on that, online. You can bring any resource to create your own course, or you can make it a MOOC. You can open to anybody. You can say, anyone can take my course. If you're good, you can, I don't know, take 10,000 students. If you're interested, you can decide you can charge $1 per student every country. You can say, you get $10,000. You know, that's if you're good. It's a global platform. Second thing, it's also a student-driven platform. In this one, you can be a teacher, you can be a student. If you're students, by writing a good essay for your class, the student owns that essay, but submit it to your English class. That student turn around, can use that essay as a course to teach other children. Students can teach other children. You can build your own Khan Academy online. Here, you can build your own thing. And also, it's an electronic portfolio system. Now, everything students done is anchored. Students can collect them and submit as proof to parents or to universities, to big bosses. And it's very easy to make. It's drag and drop, create something. It's very easy to make. It's practical and free. So I'm trying to use this to start a social movement of children-driven, school-driven educational transformation. So to end, not to keep too low, to kind of keep you too long here for lunch. What I think we need, ultimately, we need to rethink about this. We need to think about teachers. You do entrepreneur teaching. That is, you do not wait to solve a problem, you invent how you teach. We can do it. Lots of times we draw our own prison. We don't think we can do, we're constrained by this and that, but we know if you work hard, there is space for you to create. I'd rather we don't have those constraints, but you can still create. You can change from small, like we call 80-20 rule. You can start by changing 20% of your class or your school, then move on to 80%, and you move on to those things. You can take half of a day, you can take half of your students to make the big changes. Entrepreneur leadership is the same. I think Michael Fullan talked a lot about this one, is that I want to add one thing. Leaders have to be entrepreneur. You trust others, you rely on others, and entrepreneur learning. So to finish everything I said today is really about one thing. We have to trust our children. They know a lot more, they can do a lot more, especially with today's technology. And we also have to think invention got us in trouble today. Invention has to get us out of trouble. We need more inventors, more entrepreneurs. They're going to solve a lot more problems. So in the end, schools and teachers, and you are not there to teach. You are there to help people learn. It's not about what you teach. It's about what you can do to help people learn. Everything is learned, not taught. It's very important to recognize that thing. You may be teaching everything, but nobody learns. And also, you are not there to teach a subject. You are there to help a child grow. Lots of times, instructional outcomes can damage educational outcomes. We say that. So you are there. Remember, everyone can do something. Everybody wants to do something. Every child dreams. So make sure you do not turn their dreams into nightmares. Okay? You are a dream keeper, not a dream killer. Thank you and enjoy going home. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now have lunch. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.